Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to open this last lecture on the teaching about geovisualization of territorial changes together with Nathalia Bonilla from Acción Ecologica. That's an NGO in Ecuador, an historical NGO in Ecuador since 25 years or more, even more. 35 years that is working on different issues related to the environment, to the rights of indigenous people, and so on. So today, basically, it was a pleasure to to open the last lecture of this teaching on the geovisualization to the general public. So we are on live streaming on YouTube, and we are going to talk about the contested territories of palm oil in Ecuador, together with Nathalia Bonilla. In this course, we faced many times the issues of land use, land cover changes, but mainly on the side of geovisualizing from the land cover. So using satellites, geoplatform, and GIS systems to try to map and to see, to quantify the loss of land cover, basically land cover from tropical ecosystems in this way. So by having an approach of seeing the land cover and quantifying the processes of changing the land cover from primary forest basically to other kind of land use. We also got an exercise of African palm together with the student by using Google Earth. So we see and we saw from the eyes of the satellite what is the extension and the dynamics over the year, over the time of these important in terms of the extension of the African palm in the province of Orellana. However, we didn't take in consideration what is behind the physical process of losing tropical forest, of having dynamics of land use, land cover change. So I think that we have now the opportunity also to understand, by taking the paradigmatic case of Ecuador, to understand the territorial complexity that is behind the dynamic of changing the land cover towards African palm. That imply, of course, a multi-actor dynamics on the field, asymmetric relation of powers among different actors. It's not the same things to interact with a multinational company or a community or an institution or a public institution from Ecuador. So I think that today we are going to see these open laboratory as territorial processes that is represented by Ecuador, and especially this study case, what is behind, in order to understand also the social and the social and the dynamics related to human rights in terms of substituting and changing the land use in favor of palm oil. I'm not going to steal time to this wonderful seminar, so I give the floor to Edoardo Crescini to introduce Nathalia. Thanks to all.
Yes, thank you, Professor Pappalardo. It's a pleasure for me. I have here in presence Nathalia Bonilla from Quito, Ecuador. He's member of Acción Ecologica since 2004. His background is in management engineering for the bachelor, and then he take a master degree in anthropology. For nowadays, Nathalia is responsible for forest program in Acción Ecologica, and for several years till now is work in close relation with all the local communities, indigenous communities, and Afro-descendants communities in the province of Esmeralda, where it's now an ongoing social environmental conflicts related to the palm oil plantation. There are now a legal process that Nathalia is support with scientific evidence, research, and helping these communities in try to respect their ancestral territories rights, but also to prove the evidence that these oil palm plantation are causing several environmental but also social impact. So I give the floor to Nathalia to present these beautiful seminars. Thank you, Nathalia.
Hello to everybody. First of all, let me say to you that I feel very honored by being here. Thanks especially to Massimo, to Eduardo, to Edo, and also to Eugenio. Really, it's a very, very honor being here. Well, as they had said, I am from Ecuador. I am from the NGO Acción Ecologica, that which is an Ecuadorian NGO. We are almost going to be in 14 years. You know, we had been born in 19, so long time ago, and we have a lot of experience. We had worked in the Amazon, also in the coast and in the mountains of Ecuador. But Ecuador, I think, is a very particular country, not just because of the geography or the people or the Indians population we have, because also because of the civil society. We had a very active civil society, and in our country we have developed the right of nature, which means some kind of change of the thinking. Most of the time we used to have a thought about the humanity needs. But now when you think about the rights of nature, it's something like everything changed, because you start to think about it, the whole world changed. You start to think that the river has rights, that the mountain have rights. You start to think what's the forest. The forest is also a subject. No, it's not a subject. It's un sujeto, a subject, and has right. And you start to see the things in a different way, because also the nature has own, their own way to move and to live and to react also about us. So, well, let's go back to Acción Ecologica. In Acción Ecologica, we work about the oil extraction, also the mining and the agribusiness. And we, for example, have worked against the OMG, the transgenicals, I don't know, maybe that's the name. And in Ecuador now is a country without OMG, and this is something that we think is very positive for the nature and also for the people. So we work in whole Ecuador, but our office is in Quito. In Acción Ecológica, most of us, we are women working, something like the 80% of the staff of Acción Ecológica are women. So that's also a very good thing, because I think we start the work in a different place. So now I would like to talk about the situation of Ecuador, and I will gonna share the okay. As Eto had said, I have a master's degree in anthropology, and I think this work is from the anthropology, and also as an ecology activist. This is the way how Acción Ecológica is, and also this is the way how I am. As maybe I hope you know, Ecuador is a country in South America, just in the middle of the world, and that's the reason of our name. And in this case, about the oil palm production, Ecuador is the fourth largest producer of crude palm oil in Latin America. Its oil palm plantation cover almost 300 hectares, 300,000 hectares. Behind these figures is a tale of territorial appropriation and right violations. And in this presentation, we are going to talk about the Afro-descendants people who live in the Choco forest. In Ecuador, the most famous ecosystem is the Amazon basin, but also there is a very important biodiversity in the Choco forest, and also the people and the community. And despite all the biodiversity, and the natural way, the people, they face extreme poverty, state abandonment, and high environmental pollution. Also, the poverty in Esmeraldas is too high, something like the 92%, well above the national average. There is limited access of water, drinking water, also health and education. And talking, okay. Also, this is very important to talk about ancestral territories, especially for Black descendants communities. Ancestral territories for people and nationality goes beyond their collective possession of land. It also includes the occupation of a space where culture is recreated, the recognition of their own ways of life and organization. This living space also involves the reproduction of values, knowledge, and harmony with nature. The influence and control that community has over this territory space must bring with the exercise of authority over the resource and over the social and political process that occur within these specific spaces. The ancestral territory has to be built from a geographic community space useful for community and biologic reproduction, where productive individual and collective activities are carried out that allow a dignified life for the people who have lived in those territories space, which they receive from their ancestor not as a personal good, but as an inheritance for the future generation. Uh, the Afro-Ecuadorian people, for the Afro-Ecuadorian people, the right to their territories is legitimized in repression because they are peoples transplanted against their will. The territories where the Afro-Ecuadorian people settles were occupied by their ancestors, who through transatlantic traffic become slaves and were at the service of the white mestizo in these territories. The right to claim these territories as a cultural inheritance is born in the historical reparation of the damage that the uprooting of our lands of original means. This historic occupation of territories inherited from grandparents to parents and children transcends before the constitution of our republic. As such, the community of the Palenques and the Marums built already had their own laws, costumes, tradition, and organization. The concept of ancestral territories refers to a specific geographic area, a large piece of the mother mountain, a space of nature that is under the cultural influence and under the social and political control of their communities. But you know, in Ecuador, we are living now in a crisis. There is a security crisis that we had never faced before. And especially in the territories, this crisis is living in a very deep way. And we thinking that there is a war against people and territory. And this war is response to a civilization model that seeks to accumulate resources and energy. The ultimate goal of this model will be to satisfy a proposal of global overconsumption and global overproduction, which mistakenly consider that the planet has unlimited resources for its demand for minerals, energy, water, people, and other resources. Well, this civilization model of accumulation seeks to justify itself in belief systems such as racism, which is a racial ethic classification of the world's population, is imposed as the cornerstone of the partner of power and operates in each of the planes, spheres, and dimensions, material and subjective, of daily existence on a social scale. In each locality, region, indigenous Afro territories, the Eurocentric power characterized in certain ways, according to its convenience from nature, the race and colors of these inhabitants, and these characteristics that naturalize Eurocentric domination were imposed as properties of nature, geography, and population over the story of the planet's power. This racial process produced a concrete economic reality. In practice, this has resulted in structural racism on the part of the Ecuadorian state, with an historic abandonment of this racialized territory, which have been declared sacrifice zones. Structural historic racism justifies the current war in the territories. There is biopolitics on peoples and territories, a technique that helps the population desire by capital to live, while letting other groups die that do not conform to what is considered useful to produce and form a capitalist society. We clearly see how in certain places in Ecuador, such as the north in the province of Esmeraldas, the state lets Afro-descendants and indigenous people die due to the violence associated with the appropriation of natural resources, territorial dispossession, the pollution of the rivers, denying them medical attention to treat disease caused by pollution. In addition, it reduced their ability to exercise rights as basic as food by allowing the dispossession of territories and the consequent impoverishment of the population, and finally allowing irregular armed actors to control the inhabitants and their territory. Now, we are in acute conflict of violence. What is happening is even worse. Massacres of fishermen, people hanging from bridge, crashes from firearms in the streets, etc. This is really a crisis that we are living, and this is very painful for all of us, all the Ecuadorian, and also it's very painful for the people of the communities. The war in the territories from an ecologic perspective. Accumulation system tool for appropriation of natural resources, water, labor, and energy that considers indigenous Afro-descendants and peasant population as sacrificed territories, peoples, and culture. Justify under an ideology of progress and whitening of society that will finally make good use of this space, which are currently empty and wasted. You know, in all the people, in all the countries, there are still racism, not just in Ecuador. But now we have to talk about this. I think this is useful that we start to rethink about this and the consequence it has also to the territories and the natural resources. So how is the war for natural resources progressing in the territories of the people? One, this is going because the cultural destruction, because here are the roots of traditions, norms, territorial roots, the valorization of the territory, the community organization union. Also, the war goes attacking women because they are the ones who keep the communities together. As Silvia Federici says, they are the ones who guarantee that life goes on. Now, talking about finally the palm plantations in Ecuador. Well, the major expansion of oil palm plantation began around 1998 in the northmost part of Esmeraldas province, in an area called San Lorenzo. This is part of the Chocó bioregion, which stretches from Panama to Ecuador. Investors were attracted to this area because soil was differently in other areas, and because it was cheaper for palm growers to buy new land than to try to recover land impoverished by oil palm monocultures. In northern Esmeraldas, they had good land, ideal temperatures, and cheap labor. In this expansion process, the state's role has been to facilitate companies' access to land, whether by permitting change in land use, by directly granting companies land, or ignoring ancestral land ownership, and in the last decade, by providing incentives and credit to install plantation. Starting in 2000, incentives and state policies had encouraged the expansion of oil palm, a period. In particular, in 2002, an executive decree for former President Gustavo Noboa changed the land use and established that 50,000 hectares of the Chocó forest will be for agricultural purpose. This gave logging and pulp companies the inputs to install their plantation on indigenous, peasant, and Afro-Ecuadorian land, which the state considered to be fallow. In 2003, the companies Palmeras del Pacífico and Energy Palm began to buy land within communal territories, violating the 1998 Constitution, the Land Law, ILO Convention 169, and other international treaties on territories and collective rights. The strategy of the companies consisted in approaching individual people in the communities to buy their land. A company lawyer will complete the corresponding paperwork at the National Institute of Agricultural Development in order to grant individual title, through breaking with the collective organization of land. This same strategy was used with collective title territories because the state has still not created a register of collective land to guarantee collective rights. In breach of the ILO Convention 169, those individual agreements taken together allowed the companies to acquire large extensions of lands. So all of these cause dispossession, also deforestation, and industrial agriculture, oil palm and mining, affecting several local ecosystems. And in general, the impact of oil palm monocultures occur through this process. They begin with deforestation and land dispossession, continue with the establishment of large-scale oil palm monoculture plantations, and increase with the installation of oil extractors. The contamination of soil and water due to the use of large amounts of agrochemicals on plantation affects not only the environmental, but also population, who depends on those water sources for their survival. In order to process the palm fruit, it's necessary to install extractive plants close to plantations, since the fruit must be processed shortly after cultivation. The extractive plants emit pollutants and pesticide gases to the environment. For example, I visited a community that is called the Guineo in the province of Guayas. And I feel as I could not breathe. It was, the air was very, very heavy and with a very, very bad odor. The extractive plant was installed in the village next to the school. As is often in this case, nobody keeps official statistics of the health impact of this operation. But I found that the children had low academic performance because the stretch is unbearable to the point of affecting health. Furthermore, the extractive plants emit liquid waste, which in some cases is dumped and treated into rivers and streams. After research and visit to these extractive plants, we have found as Acción Ecologica that not a single case is known in which nearby water courses are not contaminated. Fish die or decrease in numbers, and those that remains are contaminated. Also, solid waste from the extractive plants is sometimes placed around the crown of the palm tree in the field, but other times it's left piled up in the fields. These produce blowflies that are bothersome. They bite cattle and people, and they also travel long distance and affect neighborhood population. Another impact has to do with the rights of workers. Infractions are common. There is no safety for women at work. On one visit, a woman talked with me about a sexual violation that occurred within the plantation. There was no investigation or police report. The only measure that the company took was to fire the woman who had been assaulted, and thereafter no longer hire women. These cases are very shameful to women to talk about, and they are also know in advance that nothing will be done to protect them. So, many times they decide not to talk about it at all. Another accusation is that when the company fires employee, it does not always pay them the corresponding settlement. In April 2022, the energy plant company faced a strike by its worker who denounced infraction and on low waves. In response, the company agreed to increase waves somewhat, but in order to lower it ordered lower sanctions to the workers who led the strike. Whenever the company shows an interest to acquiring their territories, community leaders feel fear for their lives. It had gotten to such an extreme that one community leader, fearing for his life, made a public statement that he had no enemies or debts, and that if anything happened to him or his family, the only responsible party would be the company. Well, as I had told you, there is abuse of agrotoxics, and also there are impacts of these agrotoxics like poison chronic, and also this impact more on vulnerable groups. And now I would like to talk about the case of the Afro descendants community of Barranquilla de San Javier, because all these things don't happen without a response. The communities and the people, they always has a response to do, a response to make, something to, they are brave also, and they are defending their territory and their land. So there is a response, and these are the case of the Barranquilla de San Javier. There are two large areas in Esmeraldas province where oil palm monoculture has been expanded in recent years. One is in the south, that is in Quininde, and the other is an Eloy Alfaro in San Lorenzo in the north, where there have been emblematic resistance movement, and especially the case of Barranquilla de San Javier. On June 20,000, the Barranquilla de San Javier commune obtained a community territorial title to 1,430 hectares. However, it's been gradually surrounded by advancing oil palm plantation owned by Energy and Palm on the Fabril Group, and these plantations are even infiltrating their territory. In 2017, the Ministry of Agriculture carried out a multi-temporal study of land ownership in communal territories in Barranquilla de San Javier, which determined that the community's territory is 1,500 hectares and that Energy Palm's land overlaps this land on 251 hectares. And I would like to talk about this with you as geography people who's studying this, because we have to confirm that it really happened. So we, with a friend who is a geographer, we went to the territory, we got the GPS point, and he make a new map. And with this new map, we demonstrated the overlapping of the oil palm company through to the lands of the community, which I think is a tool also for the community, to see how it really happens and to have a map and to have a graphic about this. Of course, the work of this geographer was not paid, but it was volunteer, because he do believes that he was doing something very important in this case. But based on this report, the community began to demand their territory, collective labor, and environmental rights from the company. Roundtable discussion were establishment, but end up failing due to the ongoing deception of the lack of compliance on the part of Energy Palm. Then, exercising its legitimate right to resist, as guaranteed by the Constitution of Ecuador, the commune blocked one of the plantation access roads. The company reaction was to request precautory measures, which are reserved to prevent human rights violation. In another aberrant act, the San Lorenzo court granted this precautory measure to the company. So, military and police then came in helicopters and used excessive force to evict the community members. Thereafter, the community began a legal strategy to recover their territory. However, this information was leaked to the company, which knew about the Ministry of Agriculture's report, filed a civil lawsuit for losses and damage in the amount of $325,000. The lawsuit was against the communist leaders, regardless of whether they had been present in the direct action or not. The company alleged losses because they had not been able to harvest during the direct action. The appeal hearing, which took place in April 2022, was suspended shortly after it began for unclear reasons. But finally, they fell against the people from Barranquilla de San Javier, and they ordered that the people of Barranquilla had to pay $151,000 to the oil palm plantation. But after that, the defenders, they appeal again the sentence, and then it in 2021 it was reduced to 5,000. But anyway, the people said that they want to appeal it again because they are innocent, so they don't have to pay anything to the company. But even though this, the company, the people from Barranquilla de San Javier, they changed it, and they start also a lawsuit against the oil palm plantation. And with this measure, they want to recover their territory. But in the first hearing, they lose it. But also they appeal again, and now we are waiting for a second time for the appeal audience. But we had find that there is not equality from the people to the company. It's something like that. Ecuadorian law is for the company and against the people and the communities. So I would like to put a question to you, because I had talked about there is a war in the territories, but now I will ask to you, to everybody, how to build peace in territories and with the nature. I think this is very important thing that we have to talk about. And I think that we have to recognize that this war is carried from the outside or the advance of extractivism. And also to think that peace cannot be brought. It must be built from within by the communities. And the communities strengthen their community tissue. And also it must have to be built with the government's participation and reinforcing the relationship with natures. Also, the self-government from one's own practice. That's very, very important. Because also there are response from people's territories and nature. And I would like you to think about this. People, territories, and nature. As I told you, as the nature as a subject. The, um, the onslaught is not possible received by the population. There are answers from people and communities, and depending the case, they can be visible or hiding. Follow James Scott, professor. For example, there are public strategy. Like in Ecuador, the campaigns Quito without mining that we have won, and it happened the last year. And this is about that the people from Quito called to a popular consultation to decide if there must be mining in the whole space of the Quito district. And in this public consultation, all the people vote to there won't be mining in this territory. It will be a territory free of mining. So this is a public strategy. Also, another public strategy was the other campaign that Yes to Yasuni. And this is a very old campaign, This is a campaign that started more than 10 years ago. And it was because to make a national consultation about if Ecuador must take off the oil or if we have to keep the oil into the ground. And after a very, very long way, all the Ecuadorian people decide to keep the oil in the ground, and it means to keep the life and the forest of the Yasuni. Another public strategy, for example, is a lawsuit for the rights of nature in the Cedros case. And we had won this because of it was won because of frog, two types of very, very special frog. And this is one of the case about the nature. But also they are hiding response, something like the things, the poems, and also being on territorial occupation, recovering the social fabric, also the cultural vindication. There are hiding responses, and we have find that also the nature has a response. As I told you, nature is a subject, and nature used to restore itself. And sometimes there are the responses of the nature are impressive and unpredictable. Now we are facing some problems with a river in the province of Coca, And also, the oil palm plantation are sick by the putrid of the bone of the oil palm that is some kind of cancer that grows in the oil palm plantation, in which the oil palm plantation cannot survive, that can never survive. So these are some examples that we have find and that are which are very, very important. Also, we find that the ecological justice and global solidarity. For example, in the case of Barranquilla, Barranquilla seeks to recover this territory and protect the Choco forest, and they have this international support network. So international movement and NGOs have amplified their struggle, drawing attention to the case of Barranquilla. And now I'm here talking to you about the case of Barranquilla to make it bigger, to reinforce this movement. And there is a call for ecological justice. The case of Barranquilla highlights the need for justice that protects both human rights and the rights of nature. So I would like to finish this making a call for you to solidarity. And it's essential to continue supporting the struggles of these communities' demands that the Ecuadorian state guarantee their rights and stop extractive activities that destroy their environment. Thank you. Thank you so much. Questions? Do you want opinions? Would you like to, I don't know, to participate in any way?
Thank you so much for the presentation. Just two questions. I think it's also happening in Peru. I'm from Peru. I'm Fernanda from Peru. When you said a country without transgenic products, Peru also banned transgenics, but we now face the agrochemicals products. We are full of them. How is Ecuador facing this problem? Because people are using a way more of these chemicals in our food and we're eating them. So the narrative of we don't have transgenic, but we do eat these death chemicals, it's kind of weird. So I want to know what's the opinion of this movement in Ecuador. And finally, how do you in your organization operatize or support, like in actions, in concrete actions? I want to know more about that, the struggle of these communities. Thank you.
Well, sorry to say it, that that Ecuador is facing the same problems about the agrochemicals, But I think that also there is very strong movement of of um, of eco agriculture, and there is the peasants who join themselves and make networks about talking about how the agrotoxics affect the health of the people, and they had decided to not use more agrotoxic. Of course, this is a very at this moment this is not a big movement. They are few of them, especially in the comparison of the how big is the agribusiness movement and all the power they have. But these are these people who's trying to produce organic and who is development different ways of make crops, trying to and they use to share the knowledge and being in touch, and they also save the seeds because the seeds are very important. There must be there is also this movement of free seed, and this is, I think, how we are trying the people is trying to face this problem of the agrotoxins. And about the other question you have, you know, the communities, they started their own strategy for defense the territories. For the example of Barranquilla, the communities start a strike. They decide it was the best strategy for recover their territory. But after that, as I told you, the oil palm plantation put them a lawsuit, and then at that moment they say to Acción Ecologica, we need your support. And then, just then, and when people want to, we go and make the support. In this case, for example, we were able to make a legal support, and also to make the connection with another different NGOs of Ecuador, and also to put this topic in the medias, so it will be possible to see the problem in the newspapers and also in the social media. And this is also very, very important because these are communities that very far away and that the power of the state don't want to see. They are almost invisible. So it's very important to make this case visible, even though they are small, very, very small, but they are powerful and they need to be visible. So some kind, that's our strategy. This is the way how Acción Ecológica make the support, but each case is different because almost each time the communities develop different strategies. So we are not who thinks their strategies. The communities thinks their strategies.
Hello, thank you very much to be here. Genaro from Chile. I want to ask you about the pollination process in oil palm trees, because I understand exotic plantations needs exotic, I don't know, bumblebees or bees or something, and how this introduction it's threatened or I don't know how I can say, but menacing the others species and biodiversity in Ecuador.
Well, the pollination is made by human beings, by persons, by workers. Especially they try to the woman make the pollination because this is not a hard work. But we had received the announcement that for making that they have some kind of a basis, something like this, and they have to share the pollen. Maybe it's the name. So, but this affects the eyes, and people don't have the appropriately clothes or the appropriately protection. So some of the workers has announced that they are becoming blind. Yes, blind because of this pollination, because they don't have the right stuff to make it. But also the concept of oil palm plantation already destroys everything. You know, they just for putting this monoculture, they must be cut all the forest, and then they use fertilize and they use agrochemical to kill every plant, every single plant. So there must be a empty soil to put a plantation. If there are animals, they also put poison to the animals. For the mouse or for everything, they put poison. So no one animal can live there. So the impact to the biodiversity is huge. this is some kind of green desert. But even worse, but because in a green desert, you know, this is not making more pollution, but an oil palm plantation is constantly making more pollution, more pollution that goes to the river, that affects the fishes, that affects the water, that affects the people. So this is an absolutely kill of the biodiversity, not just because of the pollution of the pollination, also because of the model by itself.
Hello, thank you. Am I audible? Okay. Thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting. I'm Sifat from Bangladesh. I was curious to know about the mapping of these oil plantations, like the mapping that the government does, and if someone does it independently, does it differ, or is there any discussion about it in Ecuador? Thank you.
Well, as I told you, the Ministry of Agriculture, they make this multi-temporal study, and they took the maps that was from the oil company, and also they took the maps that were from the people, from their territories, because these maps were made very long time ago, something like 24 years ago, and they start to compare, because also the old maps, the communities old maps has this referential point, so it was some kind of a good maps. So that's how the government discover this overlapping of the territories. But you know, we need to make it too, especially if the community wants to recover the territory and has a legal tool for this lawsuit. So we go to the territory, and one special geographer cover. He walks by the ways. He goes through the rivers, and he with the people took the GPS point. And you know, the people used to know exactly where are the limits of their territory, because they are in the territory all the time, and also because, you know, their grandparents used to say this is one place, or the parents used to say this is one, and there is a traditional knowledge and a traditional way to occupy the territory. So make the mapping was made with the people of the community and walking the territory.
I have also, you want to?
How many years oil palm tree can produce oil palm, and what they do after that? How many years spend the tree to grow up and to produce? And what about this? Because I think after that it's erosion, or I don't know, burn lands, and I'm supposed.
Well, the oil palm plantation has changed a lot in this time. They started with a type of oil palm, you know, and this oil palm used to have something like 30 or 14 years of life useful, and they started to produce around the 5 years of planted, you know. But as I told you, they got sick. They had this sickness, the putrición of cogollo is the name I remember in Spanish. So there is no cure for this sickness. So they start to change. They said, okay, we now need to change, and they are using now a plant that comes from Costa Rica that is an hybrid species. and they are hoping that this species won't get sick again. But yeah, they used to renewal each time the plantation when they got too older or too tall. The first time of oil palm were very tall, and it was very difficult also to catch the fruit, and it was also a danger for the workers to take this fruit from the high part of the palm. So they had changed it to this hybrid palm that is smaller and as productive as the other, and they hope that these are healthier than the other. So finally, they try to use the land as much as they can for 100 years or more. And for making this, they put all the times new agrotoxics or put urea or whatever to keep the soil being useful, at least for them.
Thank you very much. I'm Patrick. I'm coming from Rwanda. And thank you for your presentation, first of all. I was wondering, as association working together with the local communities, to know about the alternative you are proposing about the development, because actually this palm plantation, even if it's really not good on people's life, but it contributes to the economy of the Ecuador. So I was wondering if you have some alternative you are proposing, or on the side of community, they have those such alternative they are proposing, and also how they actually used to live with those monoculture palm occupying huge surfaces. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your question. In Ecuador, the communities before the oil palm used to live with the choco forest resources and also with agriculture resources. You know, they had fruit, they had vegetables. The most important thing that they had is banana, the banana, and also the cacao. You know, they have the agro biodiversity crops, you know, and also they have clean water and fishes, and they had food sovereignty. But when the oil palm came, everything changed. So they lose fish, they lose clean water, they lose the forest, and also the crops. They also lose the crops because you know the contamination from the palm that does not stay just in the oil palm plantation. It extends. It extends with the wind, with the wind. It also, and we had find that this contamination is so strong that there is even acid rain in the communities, and this acid rain affects the crops. So now the people just get very pure. ¿Cómo se dice cosechado? They have very pure harvest. So they make it them more poor, each time more poor, and there is few works from the oil palm. And if you get one of these jobs, then you have to. Nobody likes to work at that place, but sometimes this is the only job is possible in that place. And now what is the alternative of the people? For example, from the community of Barranquilla, they want that at least the territory that is occupied, the oil palm, leave that territory and to start a process of reparation of everything. And they also want to have again the agro biodiversity of their land. It's very important for the people, the cacao. You know, they have few trees of cacao. Some of the cacao are very old. Some of the cacao has more than 50 years. And they said, my grandparents, they planted these cacao trees. And now I'm very grateful because I have cacao. Thank you to the work of my grandfather. And I'm not just saying you this also because Ecuador is the origin of the cacao. And we have a very special cacao that is called cacao criollo. And this cacao criollo is different from the cacao that is planted, for example, in Africa. It is a different taste. Also, much expensive than the other type of cacao. So people want to think that it could be an alternative, but as I tell you, not as a monoculture, as agrobiodiversity. But it's very difficult to have this with the oil palm around, as I told you why.
Yes, thank you, Natalia. I have also a question when before you say that nobody likes to work in the palm plantation, and of course, as in Esmeralda, you have case of modern slavery. If you can explain a bit more how um, it's the process of working in a farm in the sense that you have contract or how is the worker employed inside a palm plantation?
Well, after the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, the world changed. And the world changed also for these kind of things. So after the pandemic, the companies as oil palm asked to the government to make different types of contract to the people. So now the people just have contracts for 3 months, and the oil palm can fire the people whatever they want without any compensation. Also, the people don't want to work because, the oil palm company don't give them the the property stuffs they need. For example, they don't give the tools for make the instrument to make la cosecha. Yes, they don't give it. They don't give the but botas. They have to pay for it, even though if they are contract as the protection for some kind of local police, they have to buy their own motorcycle, and the companies send them the motorcycle and as a credit, and then the company cover cobra earns from the money of the sueldo. Les cobra del dinero del sueldo. Yes, from the salary. They recover the money from the salary of the worker. And that's why people, and also they have to work a lot of hours, something like 12 hours each day. And sometimes there is a lot of rain, and people must be inside of the crops, with a lot of water. Sometimes water is upper almost at the chest, but even though they have to work there is not health insurance also for the people. So that sometimes it is the only work in the place, and people prefer that because the oil palm, as I said before, had destroyed the others economies that were in this place before the palm.
Okay, one other question, Natalia. In the communities of Barranquilla, there is the companies Energy Palma, right? And inside the big group, the Fabril. And there is like Energy Palma is certificated by the RSPO, which is the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. Can you explain what change in the monitoring and management of territories when companies receive this certification and why there is a sort of shadow, and also is the light that these certification are really sustainable for the environment, but also in the sense of communities and so in the social aspect.
Well, first and all, say that nothing changed. At least for the community or for the nature, nothing changed. Maybe it will be a change inside of the fabric, or maybe this is a good change to the oil palm companies that now they can sell the oil to Europe, because if for the oil comes inside Europe, there must be this certificate. Okay, but for the communities, it don't change anything. For example, when Barranquilla, first of all, it's very difficult, the RSPO. I used to say that it's something like an egg, very close, without any window or any door for the communities. You need to, if you want to make the announcement to this RSPO, first you have to speak English. You need electricity. In Ecuador now, nobody has electricity, less in this part, but you need to have electricity. You need to have internet. You need a computer, and you must need how it works. And for community, and even if you know all of this, then you need a lawyer and someone to write this complaint. And this is very difficult. And even if you make all of this, as the case of Barranquilla de San Javier, and we helped the community for make these complaints, then we have to wait something like, I don't know, 2 years or more to have a response. So this is a very long time to wait, and I don't know if we can get any change or any response about this. So I we don't have too much any hope in the RSPO, because we had already tried this, and at this moment we know this is not working and not making any change.
And which do you think could be a positive approach of support from academic research or NGOs to support the struggle of these indigenous or Afro-descendants communities?
Well, I also want to say that most of the times the communities just want the pollution being stopped. That's very important, because they are living with each day, every day, with the pollution. So sometimes they want just to be stopped. And this can be if, for example, the institution of control in Ecuador works. If they make research, if they make this investigation about the quality of the water, the quality of the soil, because also people don't want to put in a difficult position their own family who's working in the oil palm. So they want to stop the pollution. And associate with your question, of course, the academy is very important about this. First, as I had told you, making the maps. Because now you change from being invisible now to being visible, and also to understand what's going on the territory. But also this is very important, all kind of the research. the research, the chemical research of the water. These are very, very important. And also the anthropologist research, because they have also to show that this is their ancestral territory. Because in countries as Ecuador, the just the politics can say no, you are not any ancestral, you are just arrived, so you don't have any collective rights over this land. So the people most of the time also has to show that these are their ancestral territory and that they have collective rights. And also, of course, another input from the academy came from the law, to understand what is collective rights, and also the support of young lawyers or bigger lawyers to help the people. Some things that I remember, but if you have more idea, of course, they are welcome.
Question, but maybe you mentioned it at the beginning. Your organization is an NGO. Okay, so I can do my question. When I had an experience with NGOs in Peru related with communities, and sometimes when there are big NGOs with a long time as yours, and maybe just to give some context, they found the money, the funds from international cooperation. But in that moment, I know sometimes NGOs to complete the project, the whole project, to be on time with the deadlines, push process with communities. And that kind of gives a sense of contradiction with their own values. Okay. So I wanted to ask you, how do your organization manage that? Because to have fun, I guess you have to send the project before with a kind of agenda. Do you work the projects co-creative with the communities, or how do you avoid that kind of process to be done with communities? Respect their sovereignty, of course.
Thank you for your question. Of course, there is different kind of NGOs, and I think they try to work they used to work in a different way, and also because of their their own times. But in this case, for an example, as I told you, we won't make the strategies. The people make the strategies. They and the communities make the strategies according their own cultures and vision of the world. Maybe we cannot understood it, or we don't know how it's gonna solve the problem. But if this is the strategy of the community, then we have to respect that. And for example, in this case, when there is a legal case, especially in Ecuador, we know it's gonna take a lot of time, something like 5 years or 10 years or whatever. So when we write the project, we have to be honest. I cannot promise a result in a work of 2 or 3 years. This is not possible, because it's not dependent on the community. It also depends on the legal system. So at least we try to be honest and say we're gonna make another kind of things, like a workshop about rights, or things like trying to make a companion with making, for example, these water tests or environmental tests or different things, but to not make promise, because we also cannot make promise to the communities. We don't know if they are gonna win or they are gonna lose, or if people still wants to go on, or if they want to retire. You know, and this depends about the social issue.
And thank you, Natalia, for all this reflection. If you can say what do you think about the sustainable palm oil? Is really sustainable, like, or there is only like an eco label because they sold at if you plant sustainable palm oil, you earn much money that a normal oil palm plantation. But at the end, what is the difference between the two? So the one that have the certification and the one that don't have the certification.
Well, I honest don't think that an oil palm sustainable can be possible. I don't think this is possible because of the also the measure of the monoculture. For being economic, this must be huge. This has to occupy a lot of land. So a monoculture of this size never can be organic, you know. So I think just a lie. That's what I think. And we had saw it. I already have saw it. Um, we had saw how these organic plantation are also huge. We had also saw how they work, how they dispose, how they make the dispose of the water, and they had this speech, but this speech is not true to the nature, especially to the nature.
Thank you, Natalia. And one last reflection on the topic of agrofuels. So, and also related on how palm oil plantation that in these days have new frontiers in the Ecuador, in the Amazon region, that how this kind of crops affect also the food sovereignty and the sovereignty of smallholders or campesinos, because like the slogan nowadays in the Amazon region is like Siembra Palma, Siembra Futuro, no? Entonces, how they are affecting the food sovereignty of the local communities, and what is your perspective about agrofuels?
Agrofuels, biofuels. It started with the names of biofuels. Do you remember? It was to make us think that they're gonna be organic and good and something like life, a foods that came from to life and won't affect the environment. But now we know that these agrofuels are a false climate change solution. You know, this is just another way to keep on going with also with the extraction of fossil oils and to have more energy in the planet. So I know it's not gonna be any solution for the climate crisis, first and all, but also I know that it's gonna affect a lot of the people, for example, in Ecuador, from the people of the Choco forest and also to the people in the Amazon, because they are gonna lose their rainforest, and the rainforest instead the rainforest really make a support to the whole planet, to the regulation, also to the rains, to the regulation of the climate. So it's not a good change. It's not a good business change the region, the rainforest to oil palm plantations, and also for the people, because you know the soil in the Amazon is very poor. This soil is just from the for the rainforest, because the rainforest is a forest made by sunlight and rain, just that, and the organic in the soil, and just that. This soil cannot sustain an oil palm plantation for a long time. So there is a loss for everybody. I think maybe people can put this oil palm plantation in their land lose, and we, all of us, are gonna lose a lot. But also in a short time period, they are gonna lose too, because it won't be a good business. If they want these plantations keep keep alive, then they have to put a lot of chemicals in this land, and even though there is no warranty that it would be a good production of fruit of palm. So I think in a long term, all of us are gonna lose. The people who change their forests to palm, and also the country who allow this, and also we as a society who thinks it was a good idea and who don't make a good valoration of the really importance of the rainforest.
Thank you, Natalia. I don't know if everyone have other questions, curiosity.
Hello, Natalia. How are you? My name is Catalina from Argentina, and I wanted to ask you about this link between the escalation of violence in Ecuador and the expansion of oil palm cultives.
Well, Catalina, this is a very complicated situation, because the violence in Ecuador has a multi-factor things. You know, there is even though we have to think about that the peace in Colombia, that I like the peace of Colombia, but it has affect Ecuadorian, the country. This is one fact. Also, that in Ecuador we manage the dollar, so we have this economy dollarized, and also that we have the coast of Ecuador with the Pacific, with the Ocean Pacific, and also that we have a very weak legislation and a very weak control in different years, and also that all the country is can be corrupted. So now the police is corrupted, the military, the army are corrupted, the politics are corrupted, even though the journalists are corrupted. So everything is corrupted. And also another thing is that we are in the middle of two biggest producers of cocaine, like Colombia and Peru. So if we had changed it, being a country that was just to pass, now we are a country of as that has changed to being a distributor. So this 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 give us a lot of violence, and also there is these different groups that are fighting for the control of the territories, especially the frontiers or the pass or the pass of the drugs. You know, so we have this war, and we the people are in the middle of the war. But what we had find about oil palm, that the place with oil palm, like Esmeraldas, Los Rios, Orellana, Coca, are also the most violent place in Ecuador. I think we have to make more studies to find if how this work, why this is happened. I think we don't have at this moment enough studies. So to answer you correctly the question, but just we have found this.
Sorry, I know that we are tired, but I just want to do my question. I'm from Peru, and well, I don't know if you have heard about Iniciativa Andina, that is a conservation between Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia. It's, I think, that a kind of big project that actually focus in conservation of agrobiodiversity, and I think that they work right now in this area in Quito too, and near, I think, in this kind of area. I don't know if you heard about that. And I have a second question, that it would be, how do you handle the ethical part of the research after the conclusions of the investigation. You know, like if there is a procedure to devolve the knowledge or share it with the community, obviously not as a paper, but if there is any mechanisms that you implement to do these kind of things, and actually the information works for the people that are made. Yeah.
Okay, for the first question, I will send you back to microphone and then you can explain us about this initiative because I don't know anything about that. And then it would be very nice because we can chat. It would be very nice. And for the second answer you made, yes, we have an ethical procedures about this, and all the research we had made in the case are for the useful for this is are as a tool for the communities. So the communities don't just give it back the knowledge, they they had used the knowledge for their own good. You know, like for example, for the long suite or to make demands or for make a denouncement into the journalists or to make a denouncement to the environmental ministry. You know, they this investigation are belongs to the communities and the communities use it. You know, even sometimes to Acción Ecologica comes people who's making a research, a doctorate or something like that. And I used to say them, okay, yes, we can help you. We can help you to be in touch with the communities, but I used to say, but what are you gonna give the communities back? And sometimes people think that I am asking them to give money. Not, but I am asking them, and they say the formal response. We are gonna give the information back. That's the formal response. I think the easy response. And I used to say, no, I want something more. I want that it at some time the community is in need, then you will write a paper or amicus curiae, or you are gonna make a journal article that's gonna be useful for the community. Not now, but maybe in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But we think we need your compromise for make this at some time if the community needs that.
I think that is important, especially in qualitative research, because if you just give them back the information, the paper is actually not useful for them. It's a paper is useful for you or for the research. But if I think that if we discuss about the procedure to devolve the information and actually make part of the project, like, okay, I'm going to finish the research, and then as a part of the project of research, I'm going to do, I don't know, infographics. I'm going to go back to the community. I'm going to be in a community meeting. I'm going to present the results. I'm going to talk about the results with them. And I'm going to wait feedback, and we can have an horizontal discussion. If we make all this process part of the project, an express part, not a wish or something that okay I can do or maybe not if I have the money or the time. But I think that it should be a really big and important part of the project, and that every research project, I think it's my opinion that it should give money, especially for this part in the final research. Sorry, I just want to add that. Thank you very much for the exposition.
Well, I don't fit the tag because we almost don't make a research project. But we used to make convenios. Agreement. We used to make agreement, and sometimes the university make that project. But we, as Acción Ecologica, we almost don't make a research project.
We are doing the work of social work, and so there is not
there is different way of doing research with the communities. There is the idea you create the process of research in the university, and then you try to share activity with the community, or you extract data from community. But there is other way of doing research. For example, we work to an approach called extreme citizen science. We work supporting community in some activities and doing research inside this process, and then we produce result useful for communities. In case of Acción Ecologica, Acción Ecologica is not a research organization, it is an NGO working with the local community, supporting the fight of a local community against palm oil, supporting the right of workers, etc. So it is an organization already involved with citizens. Clear. All they have to need a strong attention on managing sensitive data. Or you so also the risk of for activists, for example, for their life. So the problem is very strong in managing information more than data, information in a way useful for the empowerment from one side, and from other side to manage this information in a way to keep safe the life of people. So the situation, they have not the problem of a traditional researcher working inside the academia, then he fell in love with the people and community, I want to do something very useful for the community, and it is different. Okay, and I think many of you will work with the community directly with a strong connection. And so, in any case, it is very important to have a procedure, protocol, to maintain the ethics of research, to keep the role of data, the safety and security of people, especially in this context, because they are risking life in this context. Okay? Sorry, I come. Many thanks.
Other questions? No. So I think that we can close this seminar. Thank you, Nathalia, to be here with us and for the fantastic explanation of what is passed through the province of Orellana and the impacts of oil palm plantation. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you.